Hey y'all, always good to see you here on Grassroots Gardening. And here we are, a new year. So happy new year to you guys. It is January the 1st, 2023. And the old wives' tale is that you eat collards to bring wealth on this day. So we're going to try to salvage what we can. If y'all saw the last video, you know our raised bed is kind of sad. But we're going to try to salvage what we can out of there, and we're going to cook them up and eat them. And if it doesn't bring us wealth, well, at least we ate our veggies. So we're gonna go back here right now, see what we can, again, salvage out of this pitiful looking garden. And we're gonna cook them up in the crock pot, and I'm gonna show you guys how I make my collards for New Year's Day. All right, let's see here. I think we'll actually be able to salvage quite a bit of this. Some of the leaves look a little bad, but we'll just cut the best ones that we can find, and then the bad parts we'll just cut out. So I'm gonna take my Felcos here. We'll just come in and just start cutting leaves. Even though this one's a little folded up, I think it's gonna be just fine. I didn't bring my bag out here with me, so we'll just start stacking our leaves right here on this bag of compost. So we're gonna take these in and get them washed up. Now ones like that got burnt really bad, I'm just going to chunk them right there in the raised bed, and they'll compost, break down, and add organics to the soil. We'll just keep cutting these leaves. That one's no good. This one's no good. This whole plant here, I don't know if it's going to come back. The center doesn't look all that great. So we'll just selectively go through here. No good. That one's fine. Usually your younger leaves that were kind of balled up in the center here are still really healthy. These will be nice and tender and tasty. That one's okay. That one's okay. We'll have to cut a few bad spots out. And we're not going to cut the center stalk, because collard's normal growth habit is just to continue to put out leaves as it grows up. So we won't cut that center part out, because we want to try to make these things go as long as we can, so we can continuously harvest off of them. And some of these, like I say, they're just shot. So we'll just chunk them. That one's just fine. We'll definitely have enough to make a batch of collards, and we're going to do them in the slow cooker today. That one's no good. This one's still okay. And what we can do, we can just use the good side of this leaf and throw away the one that was damaged. And this guy here, I'm gonna go ahead and just cut the whole plant down, because as you can see, he's toast. This kale really seemed to handle the cold a lot better than our collards did. The leaves still look beautiful, and I'm curious to see how they'll taste together. And my poor broccoli, I don't even know if there's any hope for that guy. So I'm just gonna prune some of these bad leaves off, try to stand him back up. We'll see what happens. He may or may not come back, I don't know. This guy's doing all right. Still got a nice broccoli head on there, but the leaves are shot, and I'm kind of worried. Just the stalk in general is really white and doesn't look all that great. And I think this one is unfortunately a goner. I do have a few mustard green leaves that made it through, so we'll throw those in the mix as well. Why not? I'm going to take and dig up our carrots, because when I planted the seeds, I never came back and thinned them out properly, and so they're just not going to do anything planted that close together. There's just no room for the carrots to grow. So I've excavated them, and we're going to take and plant them back after I cultivate this little area. So we're going to dig them up. I'm going to separate the good ones out, just like so, and we're going to plant them back much further apart and see if we can't save some of these carrots. It'll be much easier to do this way, since these are already a couple weeks old, than to plant new seeds. You can see the carrots already starting to form. So they've already, if we started all over, we'd just be putting ourselves a couple weeks back. As long as we don't damage the roots or the actual carrot or the plant in general, then we can throw them right back in the ground. They'll continue to grow, and hopefully in another month or so we'll have some carrots to eat. So I'm just gonna gently use my little hook tool here to kind of dig way down and pop them up, and then take the ones that look the best, separate them out for replanting. Had some radishes too, planted in the same area as the carrots, and still got a nice big root on that. So as long as we don't have any more crazy cold temperature, I think we'll be okay. Maybe we can get us at least a few radishes and carrots out of this. And this bed's kind of low on this side, so I'm going to open that bag of Land and Sea Espoma compost and go ahead and put it back, fill this area up. I want some more soil in this bed, and that'll be one way and a good time to do it now. Look at that one. These are a different type of radish. I forget what we planted, but they're a longer type radish versus just the, the standard bulb form. So we're going to throw this guy for sure back in. I'll just take and pinch off all the dead leaves off of him. And then again, as long as we don't have any crazy more Arctic freezes come through, I think he'll be just fine and probably ready in another 2 weeks. Pretty good. Right, got us our Land and Sea compost here. We're just going to dump it out. We're going to incorporate it in with the soil that we've already got. All right, we'll just spread this out. Then I'm just going to take and just kind of, like I said, incorporate this potting soil that we've already put in there and the compost. Mix them together a little bit. Spread it out, and that looks better. I like to have that soil up, pretty close to the top for a couple of reasons. One, we're just adding to the depth that our roots can go and find nutrients. And it's also much easier to come out. The higher up you can get that bed, the further or the less far you have to reach down to get your vegetables. So let's take a couple of the guys we're going to try to salvage. I'll just dig down deep right here. He's got a pretty nice root system. We want to try to get that root system down as far as we can. We'll just cover him back up just like so. We'll do all the radishes first. They're all kind of mixed up and look pretty bad, but I think they'll be okay. And we only have a couple of them, so we'll just experiment. I love experimenting with gardens, so just see if they live, and then we will know in the future if this is worthwhile or not. But I do think it will be. They're still pretty healthy. Okay, now for our carrots, and I'm going to plant them back to the same depth that I removed them. We're not going to plant them any deeper, so that might kill them. Well, at least we got our little raised bed cleaned up, and we got us a few carrots and a couple of turnips that I believe we'll still be able to eat. For the rest of it, I don't know. We're just going to have to kind of wait and see. The broccoli, we'll just, again, have to see if it'll give us any broccoli to eat. The kale, I think, will be fine. It still looks really healthy, and it'll come back. And a couple of the collards, you see how I pruned them up here? We just take the leaves off the outside, and then the camera does whatever it wants to do. Anyway, take the leaves off the outside, and then this will continue to grow upright and just kick off more leaves that we can just continuously pick off of and eat. Okay, y'all, here's the pile of collards and a couple of mustard greens that we were able to get out of the the garden. So now first things first, we're just going to get these things all washed up really good under some good old hot water. And any dirt or any little bugs that might have held on, we'll just make sure we get those off. Now my dad, he used to go from a pot of really cold water to really hot water back to cold. But we don't have that big a pile of collards, and these are already really clean. So we're just going to rinse them with some warm to semi-hot water, and then we're going to go cut them up. All right, y'all. I kind of forgot to get the chicken broth, so we're going to make our own with these bouillon cubes. So we're going to take 1 cube, and I've already thrown it in there, into 2 cups of boiling water. That's going to be our broth for our collards. Now you maybe ask yourself why we're using chicken broth versus like your traditional ham hock or cured ham, that type of stuff. And the reason it's pretty simple is because I can't eat that stuff. So a little bit about me, I figured out about 3 years ago that I have something called alpha-gal. And so it's an allergic reaction that you get to anything that comes from a mammal. What happened, again, about 3 years ago, I was in the shower and felt something on my back. So I reached back and I said, oh man, I got a tick on me. You know, nothing uncommon. I'm outside in the woods all the time. But this particular one had a little white dot on him. And so come to find out, they carry this thing called alpha-gal. And fast forward, after the tick bite, a month later, I was in Charlotte, ate a hamburger before I went to bed, and woke up around 4 a.m. just like really sick, couldn't hardly breathe, didn't know what was going on. So went to the doctor. They did some blood work and were like, hey, have you been possibly bit by a Lone Star tick? And so I thought back and I was like, yeah, about a month ago. So they did some further blood work and found out that I have this alpha-gal allergy. Now, before I get into the whole thing, I don't want any sympathy. I'm just telling you guys this story for a couple of reasons. But as far as I'm concerned, there's far worse things that I could have. It's not been crazy bad. The reason I'm telling you guys this story is because I do know of, I heard a story of a kid in Charlotte who was getting, having these allergic reactions. Parents were flying him all over the world, spending tons of money trying to figure out what's wrong with the kid. And reason they couldn't figure it out is because the reaction after you ingest the animal fat from a mammal doesn't take place for a couple of hours. The fat has to go in through your digestive tract, I guess. And that's when you have, could be very severe reaction like anaphylactic shock. So anyway, they're flying this poor kid all around. Finally figured out that he had been bit by the same kind of tick and has this alpha-gal allergy. And so it hasn't been the worst thing in the world for me. I've actually been able to recently start introducing some dairy product back into my diet. But I found an alternative to the red meat because I love my steak, love hamburgers. And so I found that ostrich meat and emu meat is very, very similar. And of course it comes from a bird, so there's no worry of having a reaction. But for the longest time, I would start, having a reaction just from dairy products, which sucks because they're in like everything. Milk is in, hell, it's even in Cheetos. So it's like in everything. So I did lose like 40 pounds, which wasn't bad. I was able to stop taking my blood pressure medicine. So there are good things that have come from it. The craziest part of the story is about 3 months ago, I had a Lone Star tick bite me in the exact same spot as the prior one did, 3 years ago, which is crazy. There's got to be something to that. But again, just telling you guys a story in case there's anybody else out there who, is having these issues or knows somebody. It might help them out because it's really hard to find out and to pin exactly why you're having the reaction because it does happen so late. Like with a peanut allergy, you eat a peanut and you're down on the floor like within seconds. This is harder to figure out because of that delayed reaction. As a matter of fact, my general practitioner, she had zero experience with it, but it's becoming more prevalent in the Southeast and spreading throughout the country. So again, I'm not looking for any sympathy, just spreading the story in case anybody, you know, might be going through something similar, might help them figure it out. But a good reason to put on your bug repellent when you are out in the woods for sure. But long story short, that's why we're using chicken stock versus ham hock. And you can see here we've got our kale mixed in. I'm excited to see and curious to see how that's going to turn out mixed in with the collards. Hopefully it won't change the taste too much, but there's only a couple leaves in here, so I don't think that it will, but we'll just have to wait and see. All right, so now we're going to add our 2 cups of chicken broth, and I guess I should have added, we're doing these in a slow cooker, and we're going to cook them on low for probably about 6 hours so they'll be ready for supper. And these things will cook down immensely. Like, it's always crazy to me how much these things shrink as they cook down. So there's our 2 cups of chicken broth. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. And I don't measure stuff out, so we're just going to call that a teaspoon. And then we're going to add some salt, and it's probably going to be about 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt there. Probably should have done the salt first and then poured my chicken broth on top, but I didn't. I'll add, I don't know, maybe a teaspoon of black pepper. And then we're going to add a teaspoon of brown sugar. This is a trick my mom taught me to kind of take the bitterness and the bite out of the collards. Now I'm just going to take just a little bit of water and then add it to our chicken broth pot and pour it so y'all can see. And then that'll just wash all the salt, pepper, and sugar down into there. Now, I'm going to want to stir this up a little bit to kind of get all the ingredients, but we're going to have to cook it down a little bit because our crock pot is kind of full. So we're going to turn it to low, and then in about an hour I'll come back and stir it all around and mix it all together real well. All right guys, it's been 6 hours now and our collards have cooked down nicely. So we've made us a little plate here. Got a little Frank's Red Hot and some Texas Pete vinegar sauce, which I love to put on them. So let's try them out and see how they are. All right, well, let's try us a little bit here. Get a little bit of Frank's on there and a little bit of pepper vinegar. The vinegar just gives it that tartness. I don't know, I love it. And then the hot sauce obviously just adds a little kick. Oh yeah. That's good stuff. Cooked just perfect. Nice and tender. And there's always tastes better too when it's something that you grew and you took care of and you watched it grow. So I'm gonna finish eating these guys. Happy New Year to everybody. We appreciate you watching, and hopefully you guys will continue to subscribe to our channel and grow with us, because the more you know, the more you grow. Thanks everybody. It's gonna be the best year ever, and we can't wait to see you on the next video. Bye y'all.